Welcome back to Car-Pinionated, our weekly show on cars, the car industry, and driving in general. I'm Doug Stewart, digital executive producer for Fox 61 in Hartford. This is our year-end wrap show. We're going to look at bits and pieces from shows that we've done during the course of the past year. But first, Jeff Buchholz has his opinion on the new Jaguar.
Greetings from Chicago. We're talking today about the Jaguar concept. There it is, shown off at Art Basel in Miami. So what can we say about it, and do we like it? Well, it does seem to be the answer to the question, what would happen if Land Rover designed a passenger car? There is some resemblance to the Range Rover in some of the detailing, some of the surfacing. The area between the front wheel and the door feels kind of Range Rover-y. Beyond that, though, I'm not sure if it's successful. The fake grille in the front, I don't think works. It might if it's more blinged out. The back of the car with the giant grills designed, I assume, for battery cooling, makes it look like a crosstown bus, which is strange. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter what we think. The fact is, it's got people talking about Jaguar, which is something that hasn't happened in a really long time. We expect that this will be a sedan when it finally comes out. And if it lives up to the hype, we'll have to wait and see.
Back in March, we talked about the new Chrysler Halcyon, a concept car that has been put out by Chrysler. And we don't know how well it fits into, let's say, reality. So Chrysler has blessed us with another concept car, the Chrysler Halcyon, which came out in February. The pictures of it came out in February. I would chance to say that it doesn't actually exist in anything more than a digital space, right? It's interesting, and they say that it's going to be showing up in showrooms next year, which I say good luck with that. And a lot of wishware, as it were. It's not software for the car, it's wishware. Because who doesn't drive down a desert highway and want to see what the constellations are through the moonroof? So, Glenn, your thoughts on the new Chrysler Halcyon?
When I opened up the article that you sent, and that was my first intro to this, because I live under a rock sometimes. It was a great article to read, but when I opened up the article, the first thing that popped in my mind was the theme from the Jetsons. George Jetson, you know, is it trying too hard to be that space age car?
Well, Jeff has a really interesting story about his formative car experiences. Where'd you learn how to drive, Jeff?
Watching the Rockford Files. And playing pole position. I have never successfully pulled off a J-turn, but not for lack of trying.
And speaking of formative car experiences, Glenn tells us this story from an episode about badge engineering, where different car companies put different badges on the same car.
My folks were guilty of having one of these, by the way. They had years ago, I think it was a 78, maybe around there, a Lincoln Versailles, which everyone loved the looks. But I knew that thing was a Granada with a very, very expensive grille on the front.
and the same roof. I mean, it was.
The first one was the same roof, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
And the bustle on the back.
Everybody was, oh my God, Detroit was just desperate that period. Like they didn't know what was happening. Their lunch was getting eaten. They had no idea what to do. And so somebody at Lincoln saw someone roll up in a Seville, which was objectively a good looking car, and said, oh wait, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. but we can do it a lot cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Hank.
Yeah. This year we said goodbye to Fisker with their Ocean SUV. Jeff had some thoughts about that.
I really, it's funny. I really liked the Fisker Ocean a lot. I thought it was a super cool looking SUV. Unfortunately, it was a Henrik Fisker company, which means that it was kind of,
Yeah.
it had three flat tires when it left the truck.
One of the things that I really enjoy about Car-Pinionated is talking about different road trips. Earlier this year, Maddie Cowdell, our assistant news director, joined us to talk about some road trips she's taken. And here's one from Florida.
And then with Key West, like, is
Yeah.
just such a fun, really cool place. I'm a book nerd, so like hanging out with Ernest Hemingway at his house there, and all the history with his books at Key West. Speaking of wildlife, the chickens. There's a bunch of chickens that
Yes.
just roam,
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like, just doing their thing, clucking along Duval Street there. That was just like really fun chasing them around as a little kid. And Margaritaville. I'd love to go back. I got kicked out of Margaritaville when I was there.
Was it because you were 16 with a Cadillac?
Yes. They definitely didn't want 16-year-olds going into their bar. But I'd like to think when I'm retired, I would be a parent head just sitting there in Margaritaville drinking my drinks. I guess I'm the woman to blame.
One of the cars that we are really excited about is the new Scout, coming out in about 2 years, but we really like this car.
Volkswagen very smartly started with a clean sheet of paper and have come up with a platform for an SUV and a four-door pickup truck with some really outstanding features. There was a lot of talk at the launch about how you could get a bench seat on this car, which is, I don't remember the last time one could buy a car with a bench seat. It might have been an Impala. I don't recall. Anyway, you're a Western blanket away from having it be, grandpa's old truck, only it's electric.
Any car enthusiast will tell you that they always have a list of cars in their mind that they'd like to buy. For me, it's a Forerunner, and at various times there's been used ones for sale in the area. And this is one that particularly caught my attention in the spring. Unfortunately, it got sold, so I didn't have to think about it anymore.
The Foreigner at the lot down the street, does it already have a Ron John Surf Shop sticker in the back window, or do you have to buy that separate?
I think there was one there, but
they razor bladed it off.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, it's a 2015, and part of one of the many things that kind of dissuade me from it is like it's got what essentially might as well be a tube radio in it.
Oh gosh.
I mean, it's just technology has evolved and changed, and radios, Bluetooth and whatever, and this thing looks like it's built into it.
Like you gotta wait for the tubes to warm up for it to pick up Fibber McGee and Molly or whatever.
It's the Jack Benny Show.
That's right.
H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Cadillac has some really great cars in their lineup. They're thought of as really best in class in handling, acceleration, driving dynamics, all this stuff. But we have some issue with their names, and there's a lot of different pieces of the Celestique that show up here, and Celestique, right?
I just seriously,
Prepared to be
ladies and
amazed.
gentlemen, the song stylings of Celestique. Thank you.
When asked if they would build this car, Cadillac vice president told Autoblog, "Today it is a design exploration, and it's the Soleil." And I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing the Cirque du.
Cirque du. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not even hiding it anymore, Doug.
Back in September, Elon Musk hosted a reveal party for the new Tesla robotaxi, which he promises will be out next year or the year after or sometime in the future. Once again, you have these doors that are, you know, just waiting to break. I mean,
Mm,
I, I will be. This is my grumpy old man piece: is that all these things that are really cool and slick and great to look at, you know, have to work for the next 15 years, right? The legality of it, right? The full self-driving, which he said, well, maybe 20, 26, maybe 2027. And like, dude, you've been promising that for years and you're just not there. You haven't shown any kind of movement towards it. And plus you have regulators who are on your back, saying, well, how come this happened? And how come this happened? And it's a, you know, 1968 promises from Broadway, and I'm just tired of this, and the way he presents it, and just like, oh, this is a great idea. Oh yeah, well, you can have your one car and you have it do your work, do this stuff while you're at work, and well, maybe you have 10 or 20, right? And so now you've gone from a $30,000 investment to a $300,000 or $600,000 investment, and like, who's coming up with that scratch?
mm,
I just don't see it. I just don't get it. And at the end of the day, all those vehicles have to come home to rest. They're not working 24/7, right? They've got to charge, right? On this magical insta charging plate of some nature, right? And though that's a great idea for the people who live with land who can make those things and park these 10 cars,
mm,
right? And also, oh, well, it's saving a lot of money. No, it's really not, And I continue to say the business model works in a place like New York or Philadelphia or Baltimore or DC or any major city. Once you get there's a critical mass of a city, I think, that you need to have where it needs to work. And you can probably count those on two hands, right, in this country. So that's the whole thing, the whole infrastructure thing. And they showed at one point, because this has been my question, like, I have been in some cabs that were kind of, you know and people may or may not be in the best of health when they get into a cab, right? And without getting too graphic about it, they showed these big robot vacuum cleaners going in and vacuuming. They're like, where does that live? Where
right,
do you have, like,
right.
this one place that, after every ride, the car goes zipping through the Tesla car wash? Well, the problems at Stellantis is something we've covered several times here at Car-Pinionated. They had the Portal in 2017, which was some sort of electric vehicle.
Yes.
The Airflow in 2022, the
Which
Charger
apparently got
last,
killed.
right,
Apparently,
which
the
I
Airflow
thought,
got killed.
right, and it was a decent looking car, I thought.
It was, yeah. It looked like a car they would build.
Right, right, like they could build, like they
Yes.
could just, like, okay, we're ready to send it down the line, right?
Yeah.
I know it's not that simple.
No, but you're right. The
And
guys, and all respect to the UAW and the hardworking people on the line of Stellantis. Lynch Road is never going to touch that car. No way they're ever going to build it.
one of the highlights this year for me was going up to Springfield, Massachusetts, to take a look at the GM Futureliner. This is an impressive vehicle. It's 11 feet tall. It's just amazing. They only built 12 of them, and one has been at Peter Pan bus lines in Springfield for 20 years or so. They did a restoration on it, and they decided to sell it, and they sold it at the end of the summer to a firm in California, where it will undergo a more detailed restoration. Getting to go up there with Jim Altman, one of our reporters, and Sean McKeever, one of our photographers, and take a look at this vehicle was just really incredible.
33 feet long, 8 feet wide, 11 feet high. Chrome, steel, and curb appeal has a different feel in Springfield.
This is a 1939 GMC Futureliner. They built 12 of them, basically for technology circuits. So we'll go town to town.
A ride back in time has just been sold.
Cars stop, they take pictures, they pull over.
The Peter Pan bus lines bought the Futureliner in 1997. GM John Seeplick and his team spent years restoring it. He calls this rolling history.
We owned it for 25 years. We built the thing from the ground up. You know, finishing something like this to bring it from what was basically a rust bucket to something that looks like this is just incredible.
Art Deco and overdrive, the Futureliner was a symbol of American ingenuity.
The General Motors Parade of Progress.
Part of what was called GM's Parade of Progress.
The import of what these vehicles did in that time period in the early 40s, the mid 50s, was they brought technology to the heartland. It brought information, it brought technology to places that weren't actually able to see it. They didn't hit big cities, they went to small towns.
The Futureliner literally does stop traffic. How rare is it? There are only 7 left in the world.
One like this one sold at Barrett-Jackson for almost $4 million.
It will soon leave the lot. Peter Pan Bus Line sold it on Monday to auto historians, the Caretakers Collection out of Los Angeles. And down the road, the hope is it will find a home in a museum.
Curb appeal, and it turns heads, there's no doubt about it. It's a unique piece of history for sure.
In Springfield, Jim Altman, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
Now, a lot of things have been said about the Cybertruck. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about them. I was able, through the generosity of a friend of mine, to be able to take one for about a day and give my impressions of the vehicle. So to talk about several things that I've noticed driving the Cybertruck for the past half a day or so, that it feels very planted. It's obviously got a lot of battery underneath, and that kind of gives a solid feel to it. It does feel very solid in general. The doors thunk really good. But the real problem that I find, that I don't know if I could get beyond, is the rearward visibility. There are cameras that are outside the truck that cover you, but there's nothing that beats being able to look through the back window to see what's going on. And I find that really problematic. The other part that I notice is that anytime you want to do something that you feel should be just some simple thing to do, like adjust the mirrors or, you know, anything like that, you have to go through the touchpad. And I'm not really adept at it enough after just a limited time, but it just feels like that's a lot of work to find certain controls that you shouldn't have a problem finding, that you kind of need to find really quick. The other thing that bugs me is the turn signals. There's no stalk. There's just these little buttons right here on the wheel, and you turn them back and forth, and that's how you turn the turn signal on. But to me, like, you want to know what you want to not think about that when you're driving it, right? You don't want to have, you know, I guess I don't understand what's wrong with a turn signal stalk. We've spent some time on this show discussing American automotive icons, one of which was the Chevrolet Corvette. Glenn shared a story from his past about one particular Corvette.
I'm going to say that when I think Corvette, like the mental image that pops into my mind is definitely the C3 version. There's 2 reasons for that. One, when I was becoming of driving age, when I was getting my license, that was the car, that was the Corvette in production. That was the holy grail when I was a kid, you know. It was just to be 18 and to be able to drive a car like that was just, you know, so far beyond reach that, you know, it was the dream. And I think in terms of that swoopy shark nose shape, that's just when I think Corvette, that's what pops into my mind. The personal story that I have behind that is that I was dating someone when I was doing work in Bakersfield, but living in Los Angeles. So it was weird. It was a semi-long distance thing, and they didn't have a place of their own. And they drove an older, at that point, C3 Corvette. Uh, the most uncomfortable car to make out in. Okay. I will not go any further than that, but there was not an abundance of space to be making out inside a seat. You need to get extremely creative. And thank God I was a young man because I couldn't do that today. So, yeah. So if someone
Hear that,
says,
parents? You want to keep your kids from making out in the car? Buy them a Corvette.
there you go. Which, well, I don't know. But yeah, if somebody's like, hey, I got a bucket list item, I want to make out in a C3 Corvette in the middle of an oil field in Bakersfield. Yeah, I've done that. So, all right.
I wish I could write like
we
that.
tuned the radio to WTMI. Way too much information.
Thanks for joining us in this year-end review. I really want to give a shout out to Jeff Buchholz and Glenn Packman, who make this a joy to do. I want to thank our guests throughout the course of the year, and I want to thank the fine folks at Fox 61 who have made space for this in our Fox 61 Plus and our YouTube page. And for those of you watching, wherever you're watching, I appreciate you too. It really makes it a lot of fun to do. You can watch all episodes of Car-Pinionated on our YouTube page, and we will see you next year.